Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's more controversial than a seagull using a breadstick as a weapon. The top 10 countries known for their strict immigration policies and, let's be blunt, kicking people out. We're talking about deportations, folks. And buckle up because this is going to be a bumpy ride through the often heartbreaking reality of immigration around the world. Now I know what you're thinking, John, why are we talking about this? Can't we discuss something lighter, like the existential dread of a rapidly warming planet? And to that, I say, we will. But first, we have a moral obligation to understand how countries treat those seeking a better life within their borders. So, get ready to explore the labyrinthine world of visas, detention centers, and border walls. We'll be your cynical, yet surprisingly informative guide through this complex and often deeply unsettling landscape. Let's get started. The United States. A nation built on immigration, with a foundation held together by the mortar of give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Except these days, that inscription on the Statue of Liberty is starting to look a bit like a cruel joke shop sign. The U.S. has one of the strictest immigration policies in the developed world, with over 325,000 deportations in 2020 alone. We're talking about long-term residents, folks with families, jobs, and deep roots in their communities. Policies like Remain in Mexico and the border wall have sparked outrage worldwide. America's current approach to immigration is about as welcoming as a porcupine wearing a free hugs t-shirt. Next up, we're heading down under to the land of sunshine, shrimp on the Barbie, and a surprisingly harsh stance on immigration Australia. Now, Australia has a long history of controlling its borders, going back to the White Australia policy that, and I cannot stress this enough, was as awful as it sounds. These days, they've swapped overt racism for a more subtle approach offshore detention centers. Imagine a tropical vacation gone very, very wrong. These centers, located on remote islands, house asylum seekers in conditions that have been widely condemned by human rights groups. Think overcrowded facilities, inadequate medical care, and a general atmosphere of despair. In 2020, Australia deported over 20,000 people, many of whom were seeking refuge from war and persecution. That's a lot of people being turned away from a country that boasts about its laid-back lifestyle and love of a fair go. So, while Australia might be a great place to visit, if you're an immigrant or asylum seeker, you might want to think twice before booking that one-way ticket. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're diving into Saudi Arabian immigration policy. Saudi Arabia relies on guest workers millions from South Asia doing jobs many Saudis avoid. These workers face exploitative conditions with limited rights and little protection. It's a system ripe for ethical inconsistencies. When things go south, Saudi Arabia shows people the door. In 2020, they deported over 15,000 people in mass expulsion campaigns. The Saudization policy aims to replace foreign workers with Saudis, leading to discrimination and deportations. While Saudi Arabia is wealthy, for many migrant workers, it's a story of hardship and exploitation. Chapter 4. India, the world's largest democracy, is facing its own set of immigration challenges, fueled by a complex mix of history, religion, and national identity. In recent years, the government has implemented policies that have been criticized for marginalizing Muslim immigrants, particularly those from neighboring Bangladesh. The National Register of Citizens, or NRC, for example, requires residents of the state of Assam to prove their citizenship or face deportation. Imagine having to dig up your great-grandparents' birth certificates. It's a logistical and bureaucratic nightmare. Add to that the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act, or CAA, which offers a fast track to citizenship for non-Muslim refugees from neighboring countries, and you have a recipe for tension and division. In 2020, over 12,000 people were deported from India, many of whom were declared illegal immigrants after failing to navigate the labyrinthine bureaucracy of the NRC. It's a situation that raises serious questions about religious freedom, human rights, and what it truly means to be Indian in the 21st century. Chapter 5. Turkey, a country straddling the divide between Europe and Asia, has become a major transit point for refugees fleeing conflicts in Syria, Afghanistan, and beyond. While Turkey has shown remarkable generosity in hosting millions of refugees, the country is increasingly under strain, and its once welcoming stance towards those seeking asylum has hardened considerably. In recent years, Turkey has deported over 10,000 Syrian refugees, often citing concerns about security and the economic impact of hosting such a large refugee population. And just like its American counterpart, Turkey has also jumped on the border wall bandwagon. constructing a massive barrier along its border with Syria to deter further arrivals. It's a complex and often heartbreaking situation, with Turkey caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to balance its own national interests with its humanitarian obligations. Chapter 6. The United Arab Emirates, a land of towering skyscrapers, luxury shopping, and artificial islands shaped like palm trees, might seem like a paradise for some, but beneath the glitz and glamour lies a harsher reality, particularly for the millions of migrant workers who power the UAE's booming economy. Like Saudi Arabia, the UAE relies heavily on a system of guest workers, many of whom come from South Asian countries, lured by the promise of a better life. However, these workers often find themselves trapped in a system of exploitation, with low wages, poor working conditions, and limited legal protections. And when the UAE decides it's had enough of its guests, it doesn't hesitate to show them the door. In 2020, over 8,000 people were deported from the UAE, often for minor infractions or simply for overstaying their visas. It's a stark reminder that behind the dazzling facade of wealth and progress, the UAE's treatment of migrant workers leaves much to be desired. Malaysia, a Southeast Asian nation known for its vibrant multiculturalism and stunning beaches, might seem like a haven of tolerance and diversity. However, beneath the surface lies a more complex reality, particularly when it comes to undocumented migrants. In recent years, Malaysia has conducted mass deportations of undocumented migrants, often targeting those from neighboring Indonesia, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. In 2020 alone, over 7,000 people were deported from Malaysia, often in raids that have been criticized for their heavy-handed tactics and lack of due process. While Malaysia faces genuine challenges in managing undocumented migration, these mass deportations raise serious concerns about human rights violations and the treatment of vulnerable populations. Thailand, famed for its idyllic beaches, ancient temples, and delicious cuisine, has long been a magnet for tourists and migrants alike. However, this land of smiles masks a darker side, particularly for those caught in the web of human trafficking and forced labor. Thailand has become a major destination and transit country for victims of trafficking, often from neighboring Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. While the Thai government has taken some steps to combat trafficking, the problem remains deeply entrenched, and deportations often fail to distinguish between victims and perpetrators. In 2020, over 6,000 people were deported from Thailand, many of whom were likely victims of trafficking or forced labor, deported back to situations of extreme vulnerability and abuse. It's a sobering reminder that even in paradise, the exploitation of vulnerable people casts a long shadow. South Africa, a nation still grappling with the legacy of apartheid, faces a different kind of immigration challenge: xenophobia. In recent years, South Africa has experienced waves of violence and discrimination directed at migrants from other African countries, fueled by economic inequality, competition for resources, and deep-seated prejudices. These xenophobic attacks have often resulted in violence, displacement, and deportations, as migrants become scapegoats for broader societal problems. In 2020, over 5,000 people were deported from South Africa, many of whom were fleeing poverty and violence in their home countries, only to face further hardship and hostility in their adopted land. It's a tragic irony for a nation that knows all too well the pain of discrimination and exclusion. Israel, a nation founded on the ashes of the Holocaust, faces a moral dilemma when it comes to asylum seekers. While Israel has a proud history of welcoming Jewish refugees, its policies towards asylum seekers from other countries, particularly African nations, have been far more restrictive. In recent years, Israel has faced criticism for its treatment of African asylum seekers, many of whom arrive fleeing conflict and persecution in Eritrea and Sudan. Israel has implemented policies aimed at deterring asylum seekers, including detention, deportation, and restrictions on employment and movement. In 2020, over 4,000 African asylum seekers were deported from Israel, often to countries where their safety and well-being were far from guaranteed. It's a situation that raises complex questions about Israel's identity, its obligations to those seeking refuge, and the very meaning of never again. Well folks, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of some of the world's most stringent immigration policies and deportation practices. It's enough to make you want to build a bunker, stockpile canned goods, and never leave your house again. But before you embrace full-on hermit mode, remember that behind these statistics are real people with real lives, hopes, and dreams. Understanding the complexities of immigration, even the messy, uncomfortable bits, is crucial if we want to create a more just and compassionate world. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Let us know in the comments which country's policies surprised you the most. See you next time.